The river hasn't held water in years. Locals still call it the Verde, though it hasn't been green since the drought took it. The bed cuts through northern Arizona like a scar, winding past mesquite and broken fences. On May 6, 2021, landscape photographer Ethan Ross was kneeling there, lining up a sunset shot, when his tripod leg hit something metallic. He brushed away the dust, thinking it was scrap wire. Instead, he lifted a thin silver chain, half twisted around a root. Etched on the charm was a name, Lydia Cross. 17 years earlier, Lydia Cross had vanished less than 5 miles from that same dry riverbed. June 11, 2004. Lydia was 16, last seen leaving Verde High after summer band practice. Security footage showed her crossing the parking lot at 6:42 p.m., holding her clarinet case and a bottle of water. She was supposed to walk the half-mile home. She never arrived. At 7:10, a neighbor noticed her case lying open on the sidewalk near the old footbridge. Reeds scattered, no sign of struggle. By 8 o'clock, police had dogs in the area. They traced her scent along the river trail until it stopped abruptly near the underpass. That night, light rain fell, washing the trail clean. For months, flyers papered every town within 50 miles. Missing, Lydia Cross, age 16. The photo, blue hoodie, braid over shoulder, cautious half smile. No witnesses, no vehicle sightings, no evidence. By December 2005, the case file label read simply, inactive, unresolved. Ethan Ross wasn't from there. He'd driven from Flagstaff, chasing stormlight. He liked abandoned places, colors that looked tired. When he pulled the bracelet free, a small piece of fabric came with it. Blue like denim, but lighter, almost sky-colored. He pocketed both, planning to hand them to rangers later. That night, while reviewing his photos, he zoomed into one frame and froze. In the background, behind a mesquite trunk, a shape stood out, pale, thin, impossible. The outline of a human figure, blurred but upright, facing the camera. He thought it was pareidolia, light on dust. Still, he emailed the ranger station the GPS coordinates and attached the photo. By morning, 2 deputies were on site. They located the exact tree. Beneath the surface, maybe 6 inches down, they found more fabric, blue, frayed, and a rusted zipper pull. Forensic testing would later confirm it. Trace fibers matched the hoodie Lydia Cross had been wearing when she disappeared. The area had been underwater for decades until drought emptied the reservoir in 2011. What remained was a meandering bed of cracked clay and salt-brittle reeds. Layers of sediment recorded floods, droughts, and now something else, a hollow where the earth sank slightly, as if it had once held weight. Investigators mapped the depression, then used ground-penetrating radar. At 3 feet down, they hit anomalies, metallic scatter consistent with jewelry fragments and a small rectangular void. When they excavated, they uncovered the frame of a portable camera, disposable Kodak, film still inside. The negatives were almost destroyed, but the lab salvaged 6 frames. Frames 1 to 3, landscape shots, riverbank, sunset sky. Frame 4, a blurred shape of a girl's arm, extending into frame, holding a charm bracelet. Frame 5, same arm, motion blur, and the faint reflection of another person, tall, male, in the water behind her. Frame 6, completely black except for one faint white streak, shaped like the number 17. No fingerprints survived on the casing. The film's manufacturer date confirmed it was sold in 2004. When detectives showed the bracelet to Anna Cross, Lydia's mother, she collapsed. She wore that every day, she said. Her father gave it to her when she turned 12. Anna remembered the engraving on the inside. Be brave. It was still there, faint but readable. The family had moved to Prescott years earlier, but Anna drove back to the site with officers. She stood in the dried riverbed, wind lifting dust around her ankles, and whispered she was trying to come home. 2 weeks later, county archivists revisiting the old evidence boxes found an envelope misfiled in a 2004 subfolder. Inside was a one-page note typed on a squee computer, time-stamped June 9th, 2 days before Lydia vanished. It was unsigned, but written in a teenager's tone. Sometimes I walk past the river when it's dry, because it feels like the ground listens. If anyone else hears it too, meet me Friday at sunset. The IP log traced to Lydia's student account. Investigators cross-checked her phone records. One outgoing text that Friday at 6:17 p.m. Never sent due to signal loss. It read, "I'm here. It's louder today." State police reopened the file under cold case number 1493. They combed the dried basin again, deploying magnetometers and cadaver dogs. No skeletal remains, but the dogs alerted twice near the same hollow where the bracelet had been found. Excavation revealed bone fragments too small to identify, later confirmed as human. Age and density matched a female mid-teen. The coroner could not determine cause of death. Forensics also found a short length of copper wire twisted into a spiral buried nearby, purpose unknown. Ethan Ross's original sunset photo was analyzed by NASA's imaging lab for verification. The figure behind the mesquite measured just over 5 feet tall, positioned exactly where Lydia's remains were found. Shadow angle confirmed it wasn't an optical artifact. The light bent around something solid. The timestamp on Ethan's camera, May 6, 2021, 1843. Exactly 17 years to the minute after Lydia's last known sighting. That coincidence, coupled with the undamaged bracelet and the half-intact film, drew media attention fast. The Riverbed Girl Case trended for weeks. Talk shows speculated about secret tunnels, cults, desert energy fields. Detectives kept their distance. The only official statement came from Sergeant Dina Harper. "We can confirm partial recovery of evidence linked to Lydia Cross. The site remains under forensic study. No foul play suspects are being named at this time." Unofficially, she told reporters off record, "There's something about that place. It's like it wanted to be found exactly now." That night, Ethan Ross drove back one last time. He parked near the riverbed, turned off his lights, and watched dust drift across the moonlight. When he stepped out, the air felt warm, though the temperature had dropped. He swore he heard a faint metallic chime, like a bracelet catching the wind. He started his recorder. The audio captured 8 seconds of silence, then a soft voice barely audible. "Be brave." He never returned to photograph there again. When the lab finally developed the last slivers of film, the 6th frame, the black one, revealed something unexpected under infrared light. The dark wasn't blank. It was filled with faint concentric ripples, like sound waves recorded visually. Technicians enhanced the exposure until a shape appeared in the center, a blurred outline of a hand reaching forward, palm open, bracelet glinting faintly at the edge. Beneath it, indented into the film emulsion, were tiny scratches forming 3 words, "Help me here." Detectives weren't sure what to make of it. The marks could have been mechanical scratches, or they could have been pressed into the film before exposure. Either way, they'd never seen damage like it. Ethan Ross was called back for follow-up. He brought his raw memory cards and the audio clip where that faint whisper had said, "Be brave." Analysts cleaned the file, removing background noise. Under the hiss, another voice emerged for a single breath, a low male voice saying something that matched the rhythm of the scratched message. "Help me here." They compared it to samples from Lydia's band teacher, her father, and a handful of local men questioned in 2004. None matched. The next step was to dig again. Ground radar showed another anomaly deeper under the same spot, an elongated cavity running parallel to the old river channel. When workers probed it with a steel rod, the earth sounded hollow. The excavation revealed a concrete culvert half collapsed and filled with silt. Inside lay rusted pipes, pieces of bicycle frame, and a sealed plastic case roughly the size of a lunchbox. When opened, the box contained school papers wrapped in foil, a cracked cell phone, and a folded photograph of Lydia standing beside a chain-link fence, smiling at whoever was holding the camera. On the back, someone had written in black marker, "Verde 2004. She said the river talks." The cell phone was dead, but its memory card was intact. Forensics recovered a handful of text fragments, and one 14-second video clip recorded the evening she vanished. The screen shook, wind noise, her voice whispering, "It's louder tonight, it's right under us." The camera panned toward the river and caught a flash of light before cutting off. The footage stopped 6 seconds before her phone battery had died. When investigators returned to the culvert, they noticed the walls were lined with strange vertical grooves, like scratches made from inside out. They ran their fingers along one groove and felt the faint outline of letters. L.C., Lydia's initials. Rain began that afternoon, the first heavy rain in months. The clay softened around the dig site. They sealed the evidence and cleared out before nightfall. By morning, flash floods had filled the basin again for the first time in nearly a decade, covering everything. The site disappeared beneath 3 feet of water and mud. Ethan followed the muse obsessively, then stopped sleeping. 2 weeks later, he drove north again, this time with a drone. He wanted new aerials of the flooded river for his portfolio. When he launched it over the basin, the feed picked up a shimmer on the surface, something metallic turning slowly in the current. The camera zoomed. It was the bracelet, lying perfectly centered in a small pool of reflected sky. He landed the drone and started toward it. Halfway down the slope, his recorder in his jacket began to buzz, even though it wasn't powered on. The display flickered to life and showed a single line of text on the small screen. "Listen." The next thing the recorder captured was 7 seconds of low, rhythmic sound, like water moving through pipes. When the file was analyzed later, those pulses mapped precisely to the notes of Lydia's old marching band warm-up. B-flat major scale, rising then falling. At 7:19 p.m., a sudden gust toppled Ethan's tripod. When he looked up, the pool where the bracelet had rested was empty. He thought he saw a shadow just beneath the surface, moving upstream against the flow. He packed up fast and drove until the signal returned, then emailed the file to Sergeant Harper with a single line. "She's still there." A week later, the water level dropped. The excavation crew returned and drained what was left of the pool. Embedded in the new sediment was a brass button from a school uniform jacket, the same style Verde used in 2004. Next to it was a small metal disc, a clarinet ligature. Corroded but intact. The report filed that day was brief. Recovered items consistent with personal effects of missing subject. No further remains. But the lab technician included one note not meant for public record. Under UV light, the ligature showed faint lettering, etched with something sharp. Brave. That night, thunder rolled across the valley, though no storm was forecast. Residents living along the river said they heard a high, thin tone that rose and fell for nearly an hour. Some thought it was wind through the new culvert. Others said it sounded like a clarinet scale repeating softly in the dark. By September, the case was officially reclassified from unresolved to closed, partial recovery. Lydia's remains had never been found, but her belongings, notes, and bracelet were returned to her mother. Anna held a vigil by the now dry riverbed, placing the bracelet on the cracked clay and saying, "You were brave." Ethan attended from a distance, taking photos until the last light faded. When he checked the last frame, he saw something odd again, the reflection of 2 people standing beside Anna, one small, one taller, their outlines pale and blurred as if made of mist. He closed his camera and didn't tell anyone. 2 months later, when he submitted the photo for a gallery show, the curator called him that night. "Your exposure time's wrong," she said. The metadata says 2004. Ethan looked at the original file. She was right. The timestamp matched the night Lydia vanished. He turned off his phone and never photographed near water again. The drought returned faster than anyone expected. By mid-2026, the Verde was dry again, a cracked vein winding through stone. When state engineers arrived to reinforce the new highway bridge, their sonar scanners detected an air gap under the old culvert site, something that hadn't been there before. The cavity stretched nearly 40 meters. A honeycomb of tunnels formed when the flood receded. The county called in forensic hydrologists, hoping to finally close the crossfile. Cameras were lowered first. The feed showed smooth clay walls glistening as if varnished. At 20 feet, the camera light caught an object reflecting back, a square mirror covered in grime. When cleaned, investigators realized it was the lens assembly from a disposable Kodak, identical to Lydia's. The surrounding floor was littered with coins, plastic beads, and glass fragments. In the center lay a rusted clarinet bell. When they retrieved it, sand poured from the opening. Inside the sand, sealed like a time capsule, was another bracelet, smaller, made of copper wire, twisted into the word brave. The lab's dating tests confirmed the oxidation level was contemporary, formed within the last 3 years. Someone had placed it there long after Lydia vanished. Ethan Ross hadn't photographed in months. He'd moved to Oregon, trying to forget the case. But a reporter from a Phoenix paper reached out asking about the metadata anomaly in his photo. Ethan agreed to meet her halfway, near the canyon overlook. She showed him a copy of a police memo that hadn't been released publicly. Recovered second audio file from recorder found near culvert 052126, file labeled Lydia_2. The reporter played it. Wind, then faint trickling water. A girl's voice, close to the mic. I followed the sound, it's brighter here. Then another voice, Ethan's own, murmuring, I see you. He dropped the device. I never recorded that, he said. But the metadata on the file showed a creation date matching the night he'd sent Sergeant Harper the email 2 years earlier, same coordinates, same minute. The reporter never published her story. She turned over the audio to state investigators, who verified both voices through AI comparison. 98% match for Lydia Cross and Ethan Ross. When the excavation team finally entered the cavity under the culvert, they discovered a narrow chamber at the deepest point. Its walls coated in mineral sheen like glass. On the far wall, carved crudely into the clay, were music notes, 8 bars etched with a nail or wire. When a local band teacher transcribed them, they formed the melody of a Verde High marching tune from 2004. At the center of the chamber, half buried in silt, was a camera tripod. No camera attached, just the rusted mount. But next to it, pressed flat into the mud, lay a single footprint. It wasn't fossilized, just recent, the heel clearly defined. Shoe size, 10. Male. Ethan's size. Authorities questioned him, but there was no evidence he'd ever been near the site since 2022. He had receipts, timestamps, even a GPS trail showing him hundreds of miles away. Still, the print matched his hiking boots exactly. 2 weeks later, an unmarked envelope arrived at Anna Cross's home. Inside were 2 Polaroid photos. The first showed the dry riverbed under moonlight, her daughter's old blue hoodie draped across a branch. The second showed a close-up of the copper wire bracelet sitting in someone's palm. Across the bottom, written in faded marker, "It listens." Anna turned the photos over to police. Fingerprint analysis came back inconclusive, but trace dust on the edges matched particles from Ethan's drone case. He disappeared a month later. His car was found near the same overlook. Tripod in the back seat, recorder still on. A last thing the recorder captured was a faint melody of clarinet notes, followed by a whisper. Same two words as before. Be brave. By winter, a second storm refilled the river. When water reached the culvert again, locals said the sound it made was different. No longer a low hum, but a single sustained note, clear as a wind instrument. The current carried bits of copper wire downstream, each piece twisted into crude loops like charms. Fishermen pulled one from the shallows and brought it to the sheriff's office, under a magnifier. The wire's spelling wasn't English letters at all. It was a set of musical symbols, repeating the same 8 bars, carved on the chamber wall. The Cross case closed that spring. Official summary: partial remains recovered. Object evidence consistent with Lydia Cross. Probable drowning during flash flood. But those who'd worked it for years knew better. Sergeant Harper kept one item from evidence: a section of the copper bracelet. When she rubbed it between her fingers, it made a faint metallic chime. In quiet moments, she swore it echoed with the pattern of a clarinet warm-up. 8 ascending notes, then silence. Every autumn, when the wind funnels through the Verde Valley, hikers still report a strange resonance under the bridge. Not quite a voice, not quite music. It rises, falls, then stops after 8 measures exactly. If you stand there long enough and the dust settles just right, sometimes a glint catches the sun. A charm bracelet buried halfway in the clay, initials still visible, waiting for the next flash of water to uncover it again. And somewhere beneath that dry riverbed, a single phrase seems to ride the air between gusts: be brave.